Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to LCK Spring 2019. I'm Atlas, joined by the lovely LS for the final day of Week 4 and the final day of the 9.3 madness that is the Frostmancy patch.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Afreeca, Griffin, they have to keep the Upside Down alive, as Jenner did lose yesterday, so Griffin has to continue to trend of going in both directions.
I didn't know you were going to go for a Stranger Things reference, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. I haven't actually heard that one just yet, but yeah, that does seem to be the thing. You know, 2-0s for Griffin do not seem too difficult. The way they dealt with KT Rolster earlier in the week was certainly pretty impressive, and the Afreeca Freecs still haven't quite found an identity for themselves as of yet. But will we be seeing more of this new take on the meta as well? Because I feel like the Frostmancy has evolved over the week. At the beginning, it was running rampant. People were playing it. Kingzone had it in 3 different roles, doing all sorts of different things. We saw in our first game on the Karma as well. But since then, sort of like once you ban away the Karma and the Ezreal, we haven't been seeing it that much at all.
There's not that many picks that actually still remain that can utilize it that well. We saw yesterday a LeBlanc pick up the Frostfang relatively late into the game and try to start making use of it. But Afreeca, I mean, that's the team that you would actually think would try to utilize this 1-week meta with how wonky and unorthodox their gameplay has been so far in 2019 Spring. And taking a look at the standings, you can see Jenner Green Wings 0-8 with a -15, so Griffin, of course, has to go to 8-0 for a +15. That's the way that this works here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Otherwise, we'll be bottom heavy. It'll be really strange. So, Afreeca, you've heard it from LS already. It's a 0-2 day for you guys today if we're going to get any normalcy. However, normalcy hasn't been the way things have been going around the world. Invictus Gaming lost to LGD. What the heck is that all about? We've got Nocturne playing Zed in the mid lane, toppling the undefeated G2 in the LEC. Like, is this now the day for Griffin to fall down? Because, yes, you bring up Karthus. What does Spirit play? What are the bans that Spirit draws?
Today is
Karthus bans.
The day.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I missed Annie, but I am here for Karthus.
That's true. I mean, Spirit certainly owes you. After playing Annie without you on the desk, he needs to play Karthus.
Absolutely disrespectful to not
I know.
Wait for me to be here.
Absolutely terrible. And as far as the first round robin, we are getting towards the very, very end. So Griffin, one of their final opponents before making that first 9-0 clean sweep through. Afreeca Freecs will be their second last one on their death note. We'll see how they're actually going to be able to do up against the undefeated squad Sandbox, the only team to take a game off this team. And that was when they left up basically as many OP champions as possible and gave them all to Sandbox, and that was how they won the game.
And I'm wondering what Afreeca is going to try to do here against Griffin. I think that Karma ban's probably something that we could expect to see between these two teams.
Yeah,
but
you
also
still need to see it, right?
The Ezreal priority needs to just not be allowed. No team should be allowed to play Ezreal today. That's basically a forced red side ban, and it's so interesting because the way that the meta is right now is blue gets to be a lot more flexible with how they allocate their bans, and it can be much more teams targeted and specific, whereas red is still, they're getting the short end of the stick. They have to consistently ban these monstrosities that can exist and do provide for some nice solo first picks. So taking a look at some of the team stats, you can see that Griffin,
they don't die a lot as a team.
Second in damage?
I know. Well, actually, they were 7th in damage. They've really rocketed up the table when it comes to getting damage down in the earlier stages of the game. And I wonder whether that's because things have changed a little bit in their playstyle, in their read on the meta, because that number going from a 7 to a 2 is actually a huge deal here for Griffin, who were playing quite slowly in the early game and then team fighting their way to victory. And I guess, you know, with the resurgence of Ezreal in the hands of Viper and things like that, it has meant that a lot of those damage numbers have gone up. As this is Chovy getting ganked, by the way, guys. This is what it looks like. Chovy gets kills.
Nice.
Yeah, just insane. That last hit coming through. And
well, and then we see right here, this was Chovy's outplay onto BDD and Umti, although we could make the argument that BDD and Umti didn't play it the cleanest, but Chovy, no stranger to capitalizing on mistakes. See, Umti wanted to make a donation real quick.
Well, I think that was just a little bit of tilt maybe, but certainly a lot of Chovy just straight up outplaying him there on the Zoe that he looked incredibly strong on. So FLICKR getting very outspoken about his own Zoe, and I think when Chovy's running around the Rift, you need to be a little bit careful with what you say, even if you are the god of the mid lane like FLICKR. As Noguri had a bit of a problem here with this particular issue versus Kiin, because that boot back just didn't quite work out for him against the disdain, sorry.
Yeah. And seeing some more highlights of Kiin up here in the top lane, and this is a main focal point, I think, actually, of the matchup. I say this every time Griffin plays. If you want to look at one of the weak links on the team, and I mean, we're saying it's a weak link, but it's still really strong, is top lane. And that's where they have Kiin. And so maybe something could happen up there. The meta is changing up to allow top laners to have a little bit more influence in the game nowadays, but I still do think that it is primarily a mid-meta, and that's why they're showing us right now Chovy versus Ucal.
And this is the guy that used to have Chovy's number, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look back to the summer final, it was Ucal versus Chovy that dictated a lot of how that series went, and Ucal was the one that had his number throughout that entire series. This time around, though, you got the first KDA in the league versus the 10th for the mid lane on Ucal's side, and it just really has not been Ucal's year. 2018 certainly felt like the year of Ucal, and now moving over to the Afreeca Freecs, he just has not found his footing just yet. And if there's a way to get momentum, it's to take down Griffin, but they haven't put themselves in a great position at the beginning of this series.
And here are the players as they are about to enter.
You can see, got a bit of a glimpse of the roster there. Of course, nothing interesting on the side of Griffin. They've been fielding the same players every single game, but the Afreeca Freecs, a vastly different story, and that was Spirit standing second there. So he will be in the jungle position today, up against Tarzan.
See the Karthus.
Yeah, well, this is right. The first piece of the puzzle has come in already. We don't have Dread in the jungle. We do have Spirit. So theoretically, that Karthus could be coming out, as here are the Titans of the LCK at the moment. Griffin, squad that looks completely unbeatable apart from that one game against Sandbox. But in a best-of-3 scenario, I just don't know how you take these guys down.
Yeah, and we're talking about how unorthodox Afreeca has been thus far in the split. And I think that they're going to need something unorthodox to take down Griffin today. And
throw
this
the
would
cheese
be,
at him, man.
Yeah, this would be the meta in the week to try to do it. But then again, it is Griffin, and Griffin is no stranger to unorthodox play when they want to, and so that can be very problematic for them going into draft here. But, you know, before the cast, actually, I wasn't going to come down here, but then someone told me Spirit was playing jungle, so I figured.
This is how we managed to glue you to the desk this time around. So we got him sat down. I strapped him in, so he ain't going anywhere, guys. Don't worry about it. And the Afreeca Freecs also, we'll see what they can actually do as they hit the Rift. They take a bow. They'll be on our red side today, so some counter pick opportunities here. The thing I actually like is looking at the Afreeca Freecs and Griffin. Viper just recently played the bottom lane. Darius. Kiin also playing it on the top side of the map, looking to try and get some of those counter picks in there. We'll see whether it is going to be the Afreeca Freecs trying to utilize some Yasuo strats here up against Griffin, who seem to have the Darius answer well and truly there in their back pocket.
Well, we'll see if Afreeca can manage to try to take a game off them here today.
Manage to try.
Manage to try. You like that?
There's a lot of additions to the sentence that you need to throw in there when it comes to taking down Griffin, because we can't just say, yes, you know, this team has a chance to do it. You need to throw in as many superlatives as you possibly can to try and wean back anyone getting excited about Griffin not winning.
There's two ways of playing against Griffin. There's the one where it's just sort of like, okay, go next. And then there's the one where, you know, at least Twitch chat and other people can chime in. At least they tried.
Yep. And I feel like once the cheese gets ripe enough, that's when Griffin might stand a chance of losing, you know? Because normally, Griffin just look like they're unflappable.
Yeah.
They're a team that understands the win conditions of their opponent almost better than they do most of the time. So it's outthinking your opponents that Griffin really seems to shine. As here we are into pick and ban for game number 1. And yesterday, I know you had some choice words for some of the drafting that we'd seen. Hopefully, we see some better drafts this time around. And I think that Ezreal priority that you were talking about really needs to be up there, especially against Griffin, who really want to play that Ezreal Galio bottom lane, get the Galio farming, things like that. Lehends was doing a bit of inting down there as the Galio, but it didn't really seem to matter, as the Thresh will be our first ban of the game.
We'll see what Afreeca wants to do here. I probably think that, all right, well, they're opening with the Galio, but they still do need to consider the Ezreal.
I think, yeah, Ezreal still needs to be banned away as the Karma is going to hit the bench. So Griffin don't want to mess with none of that Frostmancy garbage.
Lucian.
Take that one off the board.
Yep, there we go, here we go. Lucian and then Ezreal one time. And if we're talking about trying to bolster Sylas's win rates, I mean, Griffin might be the team that could try to do it.
Noguri thankfully helped us out with his win rate, not necessarily his KDA, as Yasuo will be the final ban here from Griffin. So not wanting to mess with the weird Darius strats that they were going for. Understandably, on blue side, unable to very safely pick it in that last pick opportunity. And so far, we've followed the list of the champions that we needed to ban here, as the Ezreal has been taken off the board. And what I want to point out,
Karthus is open.
There
and so Urgot, Zoe, and I think that the Zoe, the Yasuo ban sort of signifies Chovy may have wanted it. Now there is still counter picks available, but Zoe, she's one of the princesses of mid lane. Not going to call her a queen, even though she is very old. I guess that's kind of weird. It's like a Freaking Friday situation.
Yeah, it's one of those confusing things as Kiin locks away the Jayce almost instantly here as Sivir is taken for aiming.
Heavy AD on the Jayce and the Sivir. This could be setting up. Oh, I'm getting ready.
Man. Oh, you're going to get so baited. You're going to get so baited. And then
what kind of bait?
Freak is going to pick like Lulu jungle or something, and we're just going to lose. We're going to lose LS.
I'm going to need to take off my jacket.
Well, Kai'Sa being considered here for Griffin hasn't exactly been the most successful pickup thus far, but it's been picked into a lot of Ezreals and has lost turret at about 13 minutes into the game. So it's not necessarily the best. That was, of course, Kingzone versus SKT earlier on in the week, where Ezreal just ran rampant in every single game. Just disgusting. This time, going to be banned away. So the Kai'Sa might have a better chance. Saw Kramer for LGD actually destroying IG with the Kai'Sa pickup as Alistar locked in for Lehends. Do we just pick it right here? I think if they're going to pick it, they need to pick it now.
You do have to pick Karthus right here if you're going to try to pick it. It was banned away from Spirit earlier on. That's not him.
Oh, man. It's the wrong,
well, it's Thomas.
Karthus. Yeah,
that's the wrong one.
We've got Mr. Kench in there instead of Karthus. And look, Kench starts with a K. It's got almost the same amount of letters.
There. Yeah, they probably just made a typo and misclicked.
Yeah, but now do we get the Karthus ban? Does the Karthus ban come in here because the Afreeca Freecs are going to take away some junglers from Tarzan?
Not quite the champion that Karthus would actually be afraid of, which is a little bit surprising. And now,
there it is.
You know what? Get up.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like we're surprised about this one being banned. It was banned in the first round against the Afreeca Freecs in their last series as soon as Spirit was subbed in. Is that going to be taken away from Tarzan here, and certainly has been a champion that's been cropping up in his wheelhouse and does suit Griffin because their lanes play so well around priority and not having priority at the same time. Griffin feels like they just lane very, very well and they lane safely for Tarzan, so don't give him something that just wants to scale, just wants to play safe, because he will always seem to get to that point.
And with the way that the bans are still going, Yorick now banned away. I know a lot of players like to actually take Yorick against
Whoa, okay,
Jayce.
that's a Skarner. Okay, Spirit, we got the Captain Flower special as the Scorpion will be making his way onto the Rift for the first time in 2019 in the LCK.
And now if you're Griffin, how do you end up wanting to respond to this? I don't think Urgot is that bad of a pick here. I mean, he is still the Urgot.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one that hasn't been touched all that much.
There he is.
So as we're still flexing the Jayce here just a little bit between Ucal and Kiin if they want to, and it's not exactly the most fun matchup for the Urgot on the top side of the map, but Griffin do have to round out their composition here with the jungler coming in last.
The jungle pick, I guess, here is a little bit difficult to try to squeeze in because you can't pick something like Xin Zhao into this type of team composition, I don't think.
I think On the Hunt really makes Xin Zhao feel really bad.
Yeah.
Especially mid to late game, as Nocturne is going to be the choice here for Griffin. This will be the team composition that you're seeing. Lulu being considered at the moment and locked in. So we've got Jugger Sivir for the Afreeca Freecs in theory. This aiming's going to have about the best time ever with Tahm, Kench, and Lulu in his back pocket.
Yeah, so this whole composition is basically banking on aiming, and Spirit's one job in the team fight is to bring down Chovy or Viper, and if they can do that, Sivir can just run a field day on everyone. It's definitely very interesting drafts. The Nocturne was really not something that I was expecting when the enemy team still had a pick available in them. They already had the Tahm Kench. They had the Skarner shown face up. And now, well, we'll see.
We'll see if Afreeca can actually navigate this composition effectively. I mean, I guess that's the question. This is another one of those comps for Griffin that's relatively slow-moving in the earlier stages of the game, especially based on some of these matchups.
Right.
I mean, you look at the Urgot and you think there's certainly some priority there, but it's up against a Jayce this time around. Zoe going to be relatively nullified into the Lulu, and of course in the jungle, Nocturne's not going to do anything until level 6. So we'll have to see some of this signature reserved play for Griffin at the beginning of this game, and I hadn't even mentioned the bottom lane in Kai'Sa, Alistar that are not going to be doing a whole lot in the earlier stages anyway. So we'll see whether Spirit can get himself around this jungle, get his spires in order, and let's just hope that the Skarner isn't going to be missing his kind, that he's going to be finding his kind and creating some of these ganks around the map.
The spires definitely will be interesting key points for how they're going to try to move and coordinate around the map and team fight, and definitely in later stages. Jayce, Skarner, Lulu, Sivir, and Thomas Kench.
Oh,
this is all the eggs in the Sivir basket.
But think about the turbo for the Skarner. He's got an acceleration gate, a Whimsy on the hunt. He can even like close distance with the Abyssal Voyage. Like, man, everyone can help this guy go fast. I apologize, getting way too excited about this Afreeca team composition that we almost missed out on the fan cheers, but here we are into game number 1.
Whoa. Okay,
you all right?
Well, I mean, they just fast forwarded to 40 seconds.
Yeah, nothing was happening earlier on. No.
I just pass out? You put something in my drink?
I think, no. It was a glitch. It was a glitch in the Matrix, my friend. Don't worry, it's just a bit of deja vu. Sped some time up. No, it's totally fine. Totally fine.
All right.
Afreeca Freecs moving up here towards the top side of the map, wanting to get this late ward down, just to spot where Tarzan is going to be. Tarzan knows exactly what's going on here.
And yeah, just a relatively safe opening from both of these teams. Lehends camping out down there in the bottom brush. And early on, I mean, what you're looking to do is Skarner can gank for every lane in theory early on, whereas Nocturne, Tarzan, he doesn't have an obligation to really be anywhere unless it's going to be for a counter or a match gank. Every lane should be self-sustaining, and so if Tarzan ends up starting on his red-hand side jungle, he can just power clear all the way up to the top half of the map, reset yet again, then consume his rubber banded camps once more, and just try to play that game. But realistically, we shouldn't see sparks fly unless Afreeca falls behind, because their team comp won't come online till multiple of the champions have 6, have their first core item. That's when they're looking to get frisky.
Yeah, exactly right. So this does give the Afreeca Freecs an opportunity to get some things done. I guess, I mean, if you're looking at Spirit, he's looking for level 6 also, but like you say, Skarner, a little bit more tools in the earlier stages to get these ganks working. Griffin already with a bit of priority down towards the bottom side of the map, shoving this wave in earlier on, wanting to get the Alistar to some relative relevance. Having only headbutt feels pretty bad. At level 1, we're wanting to get these things sorted out, and level 2 is going to be hit. Void Seeker immediately skilled and thrown into aiming space.
Already an interesting start by Tarzan. He consumes his red, moves to the golems immediately, and then paths straight to the Scuttle Crab. And so if Afreeca ends up being aware of him, Skarner can then just advance into the left-hand side too, but doesn't seem like Spirit has that intention in mind. And so now what this can end up doing is Tarzan can actually get ahead multiple camps. You can actually see Spirit is very low on HP right now as he's trying to kite the wolf camp.
Yeah, he's going to be with a smite very, very soon, but if he uses it on this big wolf, no, not going to.
Oh, this is going to be a smite fight.
It's going to be a smite battle, and the information is actually given here. Tarzan gets the smite and gets out of there with the blue with extra health after the smite as well, meaning that the Spirit cannot fight back. That was a disaster for the Afreeca Freecs. The Spirit heading towards a 3-buff.
He is really far behind right now inside of the jungle, because not only is this going to be a 3-buff, it's going to be both Scuttle Crabs going over to Tarzan, and he's even going to get a little bit more gold to boot because he's going to get the Spires on the left-hand side as well. And so Spirit not in the best of situations. You don't want the Nocturne getting not only a rubber band lead over you, but also just extra camps this early on with nothing happening.
And I feel like if Spirit had played that a little bit more cautiously and just thrown his smite out from the brush, tried to collect things, it could have been a very different story, because then it would have been 2 buffs apiece, everything would have been okay, and Tarzan would have wasted a lot of time taking down that blue buff, but doesn't happen in the end. And Spirit is going to be left without any Scuttle Crabs and without any blue buff either.
And he has his Predator boots, but you can see that he doesn't have his completed jungle item, so while his sustain inside of the jungle will be relatively okay, he can't really do anything here. Ucal has essentially no mana. Chovy would be the first one to be able to collapse and get priority. And now, much like Malrong yesterday, Spirit, looking like he's on autopilot, just moving around without anything to do. He picks himself up some gold via the Spire, but nothing really going on. This is looking identical, actually, to the generic Green Wings game from yesterday, where one jungler just powers so far ahead of the other. Yeah,
this is looking like a disaster because Spirit was happy feeding for the majority of that time all over vision that Griffin had available to them. And what were we talking about Afreeca? We were talking about them having a lot more tools to utilize in the early stages of the game than what Griffin had. And right now, Griffin not getting punished for any of those choices whatsoever, apart from here on the top side of the map, as Kiin has been laning very effectively, even still has his teleport, in comparison to Sword, who has himself a bit of a disadvantage here. So Kiin will go back, Serrated Dirk in the back pocket, will continue raining terror on the Urgot, which is a little bit off-brand. I feel like Urgot should be the one raining terror just in general, but not happening this time around. Jayce is here, punishing him very, very hard.
And this was the top lane matchup that I was referencing a little bit earlier on, where Afreeca could maybe find a pretty big edge, because this is the biggest discrepancy that could exist in any lane for Afreeca. Yeah. You're not going to find it in the jungle. You're not going to really find it in mid lane right now. Chovy has been on fire in 2019. He's just been an absolute monster. And down in bottom, you don't expect Viper and Lehends to be getting outclassed. So far, though, Afreeca, they are going toe-to-toe, at least in the CS department, down in bottom lane, but nothing really exciting happening, and that's because it can't. Griffin won't look to do anything unless Afreeca makes really big errors until that Nocturne 6. And likewise, Afreeca can't really look to do anything other than in top lane until Skarner 6.
Well, Tarzan was thinking about coming in and trying to get some stealing done, but he only just had his Raptor camp back up again, so he didn't have a whole lot of extra things to do. Rift Scuttler will be spawning very soon, but Spirit, he's going to go back home, grabs himself a Chilling Smite, heading towards his Cinderhulk as item number 1, and Tarzan continuing to get his power farm on. Warrior Enchant almost online. Here for the Nocturne, who's getting dangerously close towards that Paranoia, is Chovy, thinking about shooting Ucal with a Super Soaker. Does so, and he's going to win out on that trade, even after that extra Paddle Star comes through.
And the thing about this is that Griffin rolls like a god as the Scuttle Crab appears on the right-hand side of the map, which is in close proximity to Tarzan getting his red buff. And now Tarzan has 6. He's going to consume his red buff. And even though his bottom lane is resetting, he is in close proximity to gank from mid lane. Skarner, still not 6.
Yep, and Spirit desperately trying to find any camp available on this map, even going to be venturing into the blue side jungle of Tarzan, but there is nothing here. Oh, Gromp does actually finally respawn. Spirit thinking about trying for a gank attempt up top side, but this wave, of course, is getting shoved all the way in. Good ward there for Spirit. Spots Lehends making a rotation up, which means that Kiin gets all the information to back away.
And the reason that Lehends is actually doing this right now is because you know that Skarner has no obligation to be on the right-hand side. They don't have camps because Tarzan spotted Spirit consuming the Gromp camp on the right-hand side. So, because bottom lane's resetting and there's no way that trades are going to occur, and you know that aiming and Jelly will reset as well, there's no reason to get priority down there because Nocturne has to pass to the left-hand side. This means that Lehends matches Skarner's movement on the left-hand side and also is arriving at the perfect time while Urgot is trying to crash the wave into Jayce, so that he can send it back into Sword, and then everyone can avoid ganks and whatnot.
Well, I mean, avoiding ganks is not what's happening right here, but the Devour will help Ucal stay alive after Wild Growth's invested everything to keep the Lulu up, but at least she does survive.
She goes down, and Skarner and Thomas Kench moving into mid lane right now, but Chovy can't actually see the size of the minion wave. Yeah, he's going to be able to get a plate here as well, split it with Lehends. And Griffin with a very small lead, but it adds up over time.
And also, we know that this is investment banking as well coming in for Griffin. They're very comfortable with where they're at the moment. It's not necessarily an Afreeca Freecs composition that's going to get vastly outscaled or anything like that. Almost the opposite, just because Lulu plus Sivir is going to be a very terrifying prospect. However, you look at these Griffin champions and the way they're going to work together and the power spikes that they're going to have coming into the late mid-game. It's going to be really scary stuff as Sword getting aggressive here onto Kiin. And that's because Chovy's in his back pocket. Chovy moving on up now, has a dash cannon, as well as that paddle star. Not going to be necessary as First Blood goes over to Sword.
And this is a really big First Blood. You can see that Afreeca, they're going to try to respond to this with Clown Drake, but it's just not going to matter. Because Chovy had the priority in mid lane and it wasn't going to be a cannon, he already got the plate, so that makes up for the wave that he's going to miss. He's able to convert it into map pressure on the top left-hand side of the map. Tarzan, no business being on the right-hand side. They get a kill in the very needed lane up top to relieve all the pressure and set the Jayce back a little.
Yeah, absolutely perfect stuff here for Griffin. Focusing on the right area and having a Zoe moving around the map. I mean, why were we complimenting FLICKR earlier on his Zoe play? It was because he was able to get out of his lane and get the work done. As he does use his flash, but look at this. Chovy, trouble bubble in exactly the right spot. Nowhere for JC Boy to go. And that's an easy kill for Griffin.
Now returning to the current game, almost a 1K gold lead here for Griffin at the 10-minute mark. Chovy going to get handed off the blue buff. Paranoia almost up for Nocturne, and if we see this wave up into... No, all right, not today? All right.
There is an interesting thing that we actually need to talk about here. Is Viper starting with the Doran's Ring is certainly a Viper move to make, but it looks like he's going towards Blade of the Ruined King, his first item for the Kai'Sa. We'll still be moving into that 2-item power spike of the Ginsu's Rage Blade coming in afterwards, but not going to be focusing on the Q evolve as much, trying to get that Supercharger evolved as quickly as possible.
Definitely interesting take. A lot of Kai'Sa players lately have been doing the double pickaxe with the BF sword.
I feel like that has been the easiest way to get that Q evolved as fast as possible. I believe Papa mentioned it on Twitter yesterday, but level 9 is where you get that one is aiming. Really nice spell shield there. Always a bit confusing to spell shield a Alistar, but underneath the turret, he's going to be able to at least use it on the headbutt and everything's all right.
And just to fade that right there, and this is a round where, oh, misses the bubble.
Yeah, not going to find the drop bubble, meaning that at least the Glitterlands comes out from Ucal and will keep Chovy relatively honest. Not going to be falling down just yet, but will be behind in farm by a couple of waves for Ucal. But not having a lot of priority around this map means that the Afreeca Freecs do have to play pretty cautiously, especially in mid, with Tarzan and Paranoia available. He also has his stopwatch online and a Warrior Enchant. Spirit just sitting on his Predator Boots and a Cinder Hulk. But it is a time where Spirit's Impale will be important, and somehow Spirit's also been power farming enough to get himself a slight level advantage.
Which is really surprising considering the opening.
Yeah.
And how everything unfolded. And when we were looking at top lane after the reset was occurring, when Kiin had, oh, that's going to be some poke, but...
Yeah, that's a big poke.
When we were looking at top lane, Sword had the wave coming into him, and it was set at a time where you knew that Tarzan's red side jungle had all just gone down. And so with Paranoia having come up off cooldown after giving the blue over to Chovy, Chovy could get mid lane priority on left-hand side, and Nocturne could just go back up to top while the wave's in front of Urgot's turret. And maybe look to put the Jayce even further behind because you know you have no business on the right-hand side. We didn't quite see that. Would have been very powerful because it also would have synchronized with Herald's spawn timing.
Yeah, and also things were just farming on the bottom side of the map as well. And with no dragons available, 2 minutes on that next ocean, I completely understand Griffin playing around where they need to be and where they're able to be without having any real counterplay available for the Afreeca Freecs. It feels like this game has been more of a brain tease. It's like a game of chess rather than a game of League of Legends at this point, because just the pieces being moved in the right spots for Griffin to avoid any undue fuss. That's why it just reads 1-0 and a slight gold advantage, as Griffin will take down Shelley as well.
And there's still a minute remaining on the plates. They might just look to try to utilize this in top lane. I actually don't think it would be that bad of a decision, especially because Kiin's mana pool is so low despite him having teleport. I think that's what Tarzan wants to do.
Yeah,
the
I feel
time
like
to
just
do it,
throw
it's
Shelley
right now.
into it. Yeah, we've got only 40 seconds to go until those plates do come down, and there's so many juicy ones still remaining on this turret.
Press the trinket. No, not today. All right, not today.
Not happening.
Tarzan's sleeping right now. Hold on. King of the Jungle needs rest too.
Oh, there we go.
There
now we got there.
All right.
Calm down, Mr. LS. Just getting a little bit impatient, my friend.
All
In
right.
goes Shelly. We'll be able to grab some of these turret plates. And the spell shield, like you say, very nice.
Can it get one more?
One
more.
Oh. No,
Yes, it did. It did. It got it.
Oh,
it got it. Yeah, Urgot
never
got the effect. Yes. So that's a massive win.
Huge
with
one.
The Rift Herald.
And that means that Griffin will have a lot of control here on this top side of the map as well. Can come back, take down that turret relatively easily. His sword cycles through a clarity up there. That means that he's going to have heaps of mana to try and keep throwing himself into this turret. That last remaining plate not going to be taken down. However, Afreeca Freecs not getting as many plates in the early game as they would have otherwise liked based on how the lanes were feeling, especially on top side.
And with an open Drake coming up, probably not going to be too enthusiastic to just go and capture it. Laning phase is already well past being over. And with, you know, what I was just thinking of, seeing the Rift Herald cast and how much gold it can generate, you know, anywhere from 320 plus on average, it really reminds me of the old dragons.
That's exactly what I said.
Gold.
I said that earlier on in the week, actually, is that now that we've got turret plates, it's like, finally we've got another objective that just means gold.
Right.
As long as you use it before 14 minutes into the game. So yeah, no, I'm glad that somebody else has come to that conclusion as well, because it really does feel like that old janky dragon that looked a little bit weird sitting in that pit. If you guys can cast your minds back, I know a lot of people started playing after that guy left, but it was certainly a lot of fun tracking to see whether or not the first dragon actually managed to pick up the win of the game, because that was 1,000 gold team-wide if you managed to get that one. Now you've got fun little stats for everyone, but also fun words for LS to say when Open Drake and Clown Drake are the first two that we have in the game. I don't think Clown Drake is exactly Clown Drake in this game, though, because gotta go fast has been the aim of the game. Gotta go fast into the Death Chamber seems to be where Kiin's going, but it's a great stopwatch to deny it from Sword, and the ultimate is not going to come in. Fear Beyond Death, very, very close to being aptly named, but thankfully for Kiin, he's going to be okay.
He does manage to get away. They do end up trading flashes, and then we saw a ping onto the turret. Now, Kiin does have teleport. Not sure if he's going to use it, actually, to try to save this turret. Skarner in close proximity with Predator available, but I think that they don't want to go for it. I'm not sure if they have intel on Nocturne, and I think that that's what they're afraid of, is if you commit to this and then paranoia comes down, you're going to be paranoid.
It felt like Spirit realized that if he shows himself top side of the map, then they're giving away a dragon, and with already a monopoly being built on those dragons, even though they may not necessarily be the highest priority dragons, Afreeca not wanting to give away the objective for free, knowing that that top lane outer turret was definitely going to go down one way or the other. Tarzan bottom side, level 9 available for the Nocturne. We'll see whether he actually decides to pull any triggers. Spirit lying in wait to try and get this counter gank in the right spot. And I want to see an Impale out of this Skarner. I want to see something started, because mid-game skirmishes, once that level 6 has been hit, like getting picks on a Skarner, especially when he's got a Lulu, when he's got on the hunt from a Sivir, I mean, getting him to close the gap ain't going to be hard, especially with Predator as well. Hasn't been trying to just yet. Haven't been able to find any of the control around these lanes, so Spirit's just being relegated to farming.
And right now, I mean, nothing really much happening, but almost a 3K gold lead here for Griffin at 17 minutes. And it's interesting, when I try to break down the scaling on the team composition, Zoe is such a question mark. Because Zoe, at any stage of the game later, can always just turn everything on its head with one bubble. And so she's always sort of this outlier when you're trying to evaluate how good is the scaling on a team composition. And sometimes it ends up being a Zoe show where she has to show up so big in order to make up for the lack of scaling on a team comp. And Afreeca, they have the Sivir, they have the Lulu, they definitely have the tools to go late. And so a 3K gold lead, it's not the end of the world, but Griffin is definitely slightly ahead right now.
Oh, yes. And I'd probably go, it's a bit of a wash between Kai'Sa and Sivir when it comes to scaling, so that side is going to be absolutely fine, but I feel like Nocturne scales relatively well if in this particular composition, because like you say, Trouble Bubble lands, you throw a Nocturne on top of them, and you got Killer Instinct to follow up. That is a dead person no matter what, whereas on the Afreeca Freecs side, it's looking relatively similar, but it's how do you get Spirit in there to get a meaningful impale before everyone has a QSS and the Skarner becomes relatively irrelevant. Because we've already got one of them coming in here. Viper will be building one as soon as he's done with his core, and that's going to be somewhat soon as well, as Viper has decided to go for this double pickaxe. An extra pickaxe a little bit earlier, but Blade of the Ruin King was where he went instead of the BF sword. So a little bit later, but a lot more utility now available with the extra on-hit damage and scaling health damage for the Kai'Sa.
And, I mean, right now, this is looking very much like a Jin Air game. So I think that Afreeca, they may have had some phone calls in the last. I think I found out who Afreeca's Valentine was. That's what I'm getting from this.
Yeah, I'm getting some Gen G vibes as well, actually. It's one of those.
Well, that is but
that's a worry. That's a worry. We already mentioned the fact that Griffin feels like the longer this game goes, the more comfortable they're going to be. It's just how Griffin play as a team, but it's also how this composition is going to work as well, as Ucal playing a little bit further up than he has been all game, as there's the headbutt after the flash coming in, but there is always the Devourer available. The anti-fun Tahm Kench will always be able to do that, as the beach ball flies a long, long way, but doesn't actually find any joy. And at least you know Lehends can have fun with his Hex Flash.
And right now, I mean, they did get some summoners, but other than that, not really achieving all that much. We're going to go back into this lull state, although they are getting quite a bit of chip damage, at least, down here on the tier 1 turret. Thomas not quite in range yet. They do have to respect the Abyssal Voyage and that Skarner could just be on the horizon, and so now bottom lane back to being a stalemate. Yep,
snooze fest down there. 3,000 gold is still that lead, but I feel like Afreeca have pulled it back just a little bit. But blue buff going to be taken here. That's going to go over to Ucal. Viper with a whole bunch of extra evolutions than you otherwise would have if it's the double pickaxe build that we heard of before. I believe that supercharger has actually been evolved. Blade of the Ruin King and the Berserker's Greaves should get you there. So Viper now going to go back home. We'll see what he can actually purchase for himself now. QSS being picked up. He's going to pay the Skarner tax. An understandable one there as well. It means that he denies a bit of the damage coming in from Ucal as well if the Glitter Lance does come across. But it will put behind his Rage Blade, and putting behind a Kai'Sa's 2-item spike has always been something that you feel very good about.
Right. And now it looks like they're posturing for vision around the Baron. It is only 22 minutes. But
with a Blade of the Ruin King and a Nocturne, I mean, they do a lot of damage to a Baron.
Yeah. Both of these teams actually are quite good at shredding through Baron. So it's not something that we can just scoff at. Sometimes there's team compositions that effectively tickle it and just can't shred it at all whatsoever. We're talking about the Lissandra and Sion in the same team comp with a Zac jungle. But that's not what's happening
Hey, at least
here
they
in
can
this game.
safely do Baron.
Oh, here we
no
go.
one takes damage. And speaking of taking damage, Paranoia, the flash immediately to follow the Skarner, who gets sustained backwards. Does have himself the stopwatch, though, and now Sword could be in trouble. Jelly, with the Devour, gets the Scorpion out of dodge. Is now Kiin on the flank, does still have teleport available, so is just down here, taking care of the bottom lane, and Griffin with a bit of biffo there, but not actually finding any joy when it comes to the kill, but they do get the priority on this second Ocean Drake for themselves.
They're just teasing us right now. That's all that's happening.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of a lot of buttons being thrown out, but just not a lot of results coming in when it comes to the kills. Just that first blood going very easily over to Griffin.
Ooh.
As Lehends, like we say, does like to experiment with some Hex Flashes. Is Chovy going to use a hijacked one?
And, well, at this stage of the game, I mean, let's take a look at the itemization. A Black Cleaver almost completed now for Jayce.
And I guess if we're talking about items as well, like you were just going to bring up, I mean, what are the item timings that we're looking for if we're thinking about getting an Afreeca victory this game? Are we waiting for 3 items on Sivir and then fight, or is it Ardent Sensor as well on Ucal that we need to get to?
Well, I think Sivir is going to end up having to wait for Lulu to get another core item, and I mean, there's no real oh man, well,
he's dead. Yep, that's what happens. It just feels real bad if you flash right there. I probably would have flashed over the wall into the Raptor pit, but hindsight is 20/20, and unfortunately for aiming, the panic flash comes in as well as the death.
And that's a really tragic death. This does mean that mid turret is going to take a lot more chip to actually, it's just going to end up going down, yeah. And this is not what they want to have happening. Sivir definitely wants to be waiting a little bit longer to come online, wait for Lulu to get another item. Afreeca is definitely looking to take fights around the 4 and 5 item mark against this Griffin team comp. And interestingly, because of the way that Griffin's itemized, you can see multiple Quicksilver sashes on their end. They have an Oblivion Orb on Zoe, which even though you could make the argument that it will eventually go into Morellonomicon and that can help stop some of the healing that's present on Afreeca, the Void Staff and Zoe's role inside of this game to just simply outright delete a target, not try to prevent their healing, is infinitely more valuable and more in line with how the Urgot and Nocturne want to play.
Yeah, exactly. But also, I don't know, man. I feel like after that one mistake, that might be the pivotal mistake that puts Griffin over the edge. And I know that's so weird to talk about because we're in a meta now where it's all about taking chances. It's all about doing your very best to find, you know, opportunities and make proactive plays. But Griffin still make you feel like you're playing against 2015 SKT, where as soon as one mistake is made, the game is just straight up over. And that might have been what just happened with aiming falling down, because it spelled out of turret in the mid lane. It spelled out of turret on the bottom side. It meant that aiming wasn't present on the map, and now they can't fight with Reckless Abandon because aiming doesn't have his flash as well. There are so many flow-on effects, and this might even be another one, as the Trouble Bubble did way more damage than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Onto aiming there, and if any of these land, that's someone dead and probably a Baron going down as well.
Yeah, it's a really scary thing because the Sivir is such an integral part to the team comp. If she goes down in a fight, it's all over. Nocturne, Urgot, and Zoe's job is just to assassinate her right before a fight breaks out, or to get her low enough to get her out of the fight. Whereas on Griffin's side, Zoe and Kai'Sa are both problematic champions. And let's say that Sivir and Kai'Sa go down. Well, Zoe is still a very big nuisance, and if both teams are missing their ADs and their mid laners, the Urgot and the Nocturne is infinitely more scary than the Jayce and the Skarner.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that Ucal is, as soon as Sivir goes down, then his reason for being in a team fight is now also down. So if the Paranoia does go down and aiming is the one that falls because of it, or even if Chovy just lands a really nice Trouble Bubble like he already has this game, that's when things become a problem, because 5,000 gold is now the lead. Chovy's continuing to be a problem, an issue in this mid lane. He just throws Paddle Stars left, right, and center, creating so much space for Griffin to play in. And when you've got just one guy sitting on a relatively, I guess, stationary, although he does portal jump around Zoe in the mid lane, and no one can actually walk up to him, Griffin just has so much extra space. Like, they're basically using this Zoe as 3 people at this point in the game, which just you shouldn't be able to do. And he's got such a huge lead in the farm. Like, we could talk about how far ahead Chovy is for probably the rest of this game, and then it'll be over.
And well,
also Kiin might be in trouble as well. Yeah, half the health bar now of the Jayce. The ultimate is going to land. The Ignite is down, but I don't think he's going to get eaten through with the Fear Beyond Death.
What?
He just runs up and ignites it. He wanted to get his teleport back, I think is how it was looking. Is okay. Not going to get hit by that Trouble Bubble.
Gave him a little slap on the cheek.
Yep.
I'll let you decide which one I'm talking about. All right, so...
Oh, that's because he might just be dying here on the bottom side of the map. Spirit does find the Impale, but Sword still gets that kill. And Tarzan, remember guys, he's got a Guardian Angel that he doesn't actually need to use as of yet. Gargoyle Stone Plate there as the Purge gives the shield in for Sword, but he will be taken down. No perfect games available here for Griffin when it comes to these kills, and Afreeca grab their first of the game.
And it ends up being a 1-for-1 in the end. Guardian Angel is able to be kept up on Tarzan, which is an objective in and of itself as we're starting to move into the later stages of the game. And Griffin, they're going to pick up themselves an Ocean Drake, and in doing so, they're going to cause another Elemental Dragon to spawn.
They're just hoping that they can roll high on the third Drake option being an Infernal.
No, it's going to be a mountain, okay? Calm down here.
All right,
Hold on.
No, it would be a Cloud Drake, imagine that.
No.
That's the dream, that's the dream. Oh, it is! Look at me go! See, sometimes your optimism pays off, LS.
Darkness clouds me, right?
It also clouds the Afreeca Freecs, as this was a Paranoia successfully grabbing a kill on the bottom side of the map, as Kiin is being picked on this game.
Well, he just ends up getting picked off right there, but at least they, in the end, go 1 for 1. And that's a nice pickup for Afreeca. When you are trying to just hit those later stage items, any sort of trades are normally going to be beneficial for you, more so than the enemy team.
Also,
now,
Infinity Edge is built up for aiming now, so we do have that 3-item spike, can build some utility now. Potentially, is Kiin just going to throw through a Empowered Shock Blast, but it's not feeling too dangerous here, especially now that a really cool hat has been built by Chovy. And the Zoe, these Paddle Stars, you won't need to land a Trouble Bubble for them to just eliminate people.
Oddly enough, I mean, the Lulu is going for Death Cap. You can see with the 2 needlessly large rods that are present in the inventory right now, and that strikes me as a little bit bizarre because already the AP that Lulu is going to be able to keep stacking up in this game is naturally going to be stunted because you want to be the more supportive type of build, and I'm wondering where the Ardent Sensor is inside of this build.
I would have thought that
Sivir.
would have been item number 3, but instead Ucal probably going to be picking it up item number 4, or maybe not at all. Like, does he go Void Stuff and try to be Battle Lulu? I wouldn't like it, because I feel like you're double dipping a lot more if you go for the Ravenous Death Cap into the Ardent Sensor, because yes, you got big AP numbers, but that translates into both utility. But there's the flash in from Lehends. Gets the headbutt back, but thankfully there is a Devour now on top of this Sivir who can get some free hits down, but Chovy finds him in the back line. They eat up the Skarner for breakfast, and Afreeca Freecs.
All right.
You can't walk into a big old pulverize like that without getting taken down, and Kiin wonders where the hell his team's gone.
They just got milked. That was how that fight just ended up going. I think this might be... No, they don't have enough minions. It's not going to be the end of the game yet. They don't have a teleport.
Well, can Sword actually just tank up
maybe
these
he can.
Nexus
Yeah,
turrets?
actually he can. He can. He has Stone Plate. He has the Guardian Angel.
Yeah,
so
this
much
is just
armor.
the end of the game. As Kiin's like, oh no, they brought the minions over to the Nexus. We can't actually do anything. I'm going to have to teleport in and just die. That is the clean ace, and that is Griffin saying no to this game going any longer. I'm
getting flashbacks from Jin Air because this is exactly how the games went yesterday. Tons of build-up, lots of scaling, one fight over.
Boom. Yeah, that was just absolutely terrifying. And you can see CVMax having a chat to Chovy here. It was all about him. I actually felt like there was some stability being built in that last team fight. The Devour comes in, the Wild Growth is on the priority Sivir target, and then a Paddle Star flies in, and he's just dead, eliminated immediately. And he had about 2,000 health. Well, Chovy does about 2,000 damage with one button. So, that's it. You build everything up around aiming. He dies immediately at the beginning of the fight after all of your buttons are now on cooldown after being put onto him. And you know how the fight's going to go. Griffin, another day in the office.
And, well, now Afreeca are going to have to go back to the drawing board, try to figure out and devise a flowchart to get to Karthus. It's not going to let this go.
Oh, man. Well, at least they can potentially first pick it this time around, as they will be moving over to our blue side.
Got a 5-head. You like this 5-head?
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. I mean, it's better than what we saw yesterday.
Raynad can get in line now. I'm taking...
Because actually, there's like, as far as forehead quotient is concerned for this desk, there's a lot. I mean, I got a fair bit of forehead just in general. I can extend it as well as like, yeah, there we go. If we do a frowny face, then
we combine our powers.
Yeah, we're like a 7-head syndrome at the moment. But it's going back to the game. I mean, you don't really want to be talking about it. We want to be talking about our foreheads at the moment because Griffin it seems like we're just saying the same things every single time. Who is going to be able to actually upset this team? So far, the answer is absolutely no one, and it's certainly not the Afreeca Freecs, who honestly just rolled over and died this game. 2.2k damage to champions for the jungler, mid laner, and support.
They like the number 2.2. Lots of pocket deuces on the side of Afreeca Freecs. So that was a whole lot of doing nothing.
Yes.
So that was fantastic. This game, I mean, there's really no other way to put it. Skarner fell behind really early. Couldn't ever really use... I don't think he ever used an offensive R.
He did underneath the turret against Tarzan, who then didn't lose his Guardian Angel. That was how that one
I'm going to let you close this.
Yeah, so we're gonna take a short break. Thankfully, it's a best-of-3 series, so Afreeca Freecs have an opportunity to find themselves in this series, because game number 1 was certainly not an example of that. So after the break, game number 2, Afreeca Freecs versus Griffin. Don't go anywhere, because maybe it'll be over as quickly as game number 1.